Creepy Black is a creepypasta about a bootleg Pokemon Red Game Boy game in which other trainers and Pokemon can be killed. The creepypasta predates the release of the Nintendo DS game Pokemon Black. The story begins with the narrator's discovery of a Pokemon named Ghost, added to the usual lineup of Pokemon Red, which has a sprite of ghosts from the Lavender Town prior to obtaining this Life Scope item. The narrator goes on to reveal that the mysterious ghost Pokemon has an unusual ability. It is also noted that if the player continues to use the Curse ability, the Pokemon trainer would disappear as well. The narrator describes the end of the game as being devoid of any other trainers or Pokemon in the story, concludes the unusual battle against a ghost Pokemon who defeats the defenseless player by using the Curse ability. The original story of Lost Silver was a story about a Pokemon fan who claims he bought a used copy of the game at GameStop for a bargain price. But once he loaded the game onto his Game Boy, he immediately noticed that the saved game left behind by the cart's previous owner was highly unusual. Whomever owned the game simply named their trainer Anonymous, had maxed out their Pokédex with all 251 entries, including legendary Pokemon like Celebi and Mew, and had also maxed out their memory and levels. At the story's conclusion, the trainer named Anonymous became a ghost and is trapped forever amongst several dead Pokemon graves. The moral, if you couldn't call it that, spells out, despite his enormous success as a Pokemon trainer in life, death still came for in the end. It still calls for us worse, seemingly died of nameless, alone, and forgotten. Candle Cove is a story of a forum chat about the remembrance of an old childhood show from the 1970s called Candle Cove. According to the blog, it says about someone that says if they remember any kid show, it was called Candle Cove, and it was around in about 1971 or 72. And then someone responded to that saying, "It seems really familiar to me. I grew up outside of Ashland and I was 9 years old in 72. Candle Cove, was it about pirates? I remember a pirate marionettes at the mouth of a cave talking to a little girl." Then the subject replied, "Yes, okay, I'm not crazy. I remember Pirate Percy. You were always kind of scared of him. He looks like he was built from parts of other dolls. Real low budget." And then it gets more sinister, as to say, Jesus H. Christ, the Skin Taker. What kind of a kid show were we watching? Then it gets worse to say, one of the subjects says, "I used to have this awful memory, a bad dream I had where the opening jingle ended, the show faded in from black, and all the characters were there, but the camera was just cutting to each of their faces, and they were just screaming. The pirates and marionettes were flailing spastically and just all screaming. The girl was just moaning and crying like she had been through hours of this. I woke up many times from that nightmare and used to wet the bed when I had it." Then the other subject replies, "I don't think that was a dream. I remember that. That was an episode." This is to imply the show is something more dark and sinister than the childhood memory. Luna.exe is a 2D platform game that is designed to prank players similar to the Scary Maze game. It features creepy images of My Little Pony characters and eventually freezes up the player's computer. On April 3rd, 2011, a link to a game titled Luna Game was posted to Equestria Daily, a My Little Pony blog. The link provided a download to an executable file that had to be run off the user's hard drive in order to play, unlike embedded Flash games that can be played in browser window. The game begins as a normal 2D platformer, as you can move left, right, or jump. After proceeding to the right, the screen is filled with an image of a Zalgo-styled Pinkie Pie, or an apple bloom-looking psychotic. And the ominous song starts to play in the background, and soon after the game freezes. One way to quit at this point is to go into the task manager, the keyboard arrow keys, though the game does not close on its own at about 30 seconds. The original game would create extra files in the folder the game was saved in to have manually deleted afterwards. Lavender Town Syndrome, also known as the Lavender Town Conspiracy, the Lavender Town Tone, the Lavender Town Suicides, is a series of creepypasta stories and videos that detail a conspiracy to cover up mass child suicide. These suicides were allegedly caused by listening to the first version of the Lavender Town theme in the Japanese version of the Pokemon Red and Green games. Introduced in Pokemon Red and Green, Lavender Town is the designated graveyard for deceased monsters and is known for its ghost sightings. The first edition of these games was released in Japan in February 1996. By the time the games were released in the United States 2 years later, the original music for Lavender Town, composed by Junichi Masuda, had been changed. Since the ambience of the tone of that graveyard, the music was relatively creepy, with players on game message boards Cerebi and NintendoWorlds.net discussing this in 2008. A remix of the song appeared early in 2010, attempting to intensify its spookiness. Dead Bart. The episode started off like any other episode, but had very poor quality animation. If you've seen the original animation for Some Enchanted Evening, it was similar but less stable. The first act was fairly normal, but the way the characters acted was a little off. Homer seemed angrier, Marge seemed depressed, Lisa seemed anxious, Bart seemed to have a genuine anger and hatred for his parents. The episode was about the Simpsons going on a plane trip. Near the end of the first act, the plane was taking off. Bart was fooling around, as you'd expect. However, as the plane was about 50 feet off the ground, Bart broke a window on the plane and was sucked out. At the beginning of the series, Matt had an idea that the animated style of the Simpsons world represented life, and that death turned things more realistic. This was used in this episode. The picture of Bart's corpse was barely recognizable. They took full advantage of not having to move, but then made an almost photorealistic drawing of his dead body. Act 1 ended with a shot of Bart's corpse. When Act 2 started, Homer, Marge, and Lisa were sitting at their table crying. The crying went on and it got more pain, and it sounded more realistic, better acting than you would think possible. The animation started to decay even more as they cried, and you could hear murmuring in the background. This crying went on for all of Act 2. Act 3 opened with a title card saying 1 year had passed. Homer, Marge, and Lisa were skeletally thin and still sitting at the table, and there was no sign of Maggie or the pets. They decided to visit Bart's grave. Springfield was completely deserted, and as they walked into the cemetery, houses became more and more decrepit. They all looked abandoned. When they got to the grave, Bart's body was just lying in front of his tombstone, looking just like it did at the end of Act 1. The family started crying again. Eventually they stopped and just stared at Bart's body. The camera zoomed on Homer's face. According to summary, Homer tells a joke at this part, but it isn't audible in the version I saw. You can't tell what Homer is saying. The view zoomed out as this episode came to a close. The tombstone in the background had the names of every Simpsons guest star on them. Some of them no one had heard of in 1989. Some that haven't been on the show yet. All of them had death dates on them. For guests who died since, like Michael Jackson and George Harrison, the actual dates of their actual death. The Slender Man is a mythical creature often depicted as a tall, thin figure wearing a black suit and a blank face. According to the legend, he can stretch or shorten his arms at will and has tentacle-like appendages protruding from his back. Depending on the interpretations of the myth, the creature may cause memory loss, insomnia, paranoia, and coughing fits. Photograph/video distortions and teleport as well. The urban legend has inspired fan arts, fictional creepypastas, and a mockumentary series on the style of the 1999 indie horror film Blair Witch Project. On June 8, 2009, a Paranormal Pictures Photoshop contest was launched on the Something Awful essay forums. The contest required participants to turn ordinary photographs into creepy-looking images through digital manipulation, and then pass them on as authentic photographs in a number of paranormal forums. Something Awful users soon began sharing their faux paranormal creations with layered images of ghosts and other anomalies, usually accompanied by a fabricated witness account to make them more convincing. On June 10th, an essay user, Victor Surge, posted 2 black and white photographs of unnamed children with a short description of Slender Man as a mysterious creature who stalked children. Now this is by far my favorite one. Ben Drowned is about a Majora's Mask creepypasta, also known as Ben Drowned, of course. It's an online legend about The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask cartridge for the Nintendo 64 video game console. It is often associated with the phrase, "you shouldn't have done that," and is popular among the users of 4chan's X Paranormal board. On September 7th, 2010, 4chan user Jeduceable posted a thread about his experiences with a haunted Majora's Mask cartridge for the N64. He explained that after receiving a suspicious-looking Majora's Mask cartridge from an old man, he went to his dorm room to play it and noticed it had a save file named Ben on it. He decided to ignore it and created a new file, but during the course of the game, characters would refer to him as Ben. At various moments, figuring it would help the problem, Jeduceable deleted the Ben save file. But this caused the characters not to refer to his name at all, and then attempted to perform the fourth day glitch, a hack that allowed players to get an entire extra day to the game, and was ported to the Majora boss battle at the end of the game. He noticed that the text was being displayed incorrectly, and the music being played was a reversed version of the game's theme song of healing, before being ported back to Clocktown. At Clocktown, he discovered that the textures were missing, the music was distorted, and the town was empty of the normal characters. He began posting links to YouTube videos he claimed to have recorded while playing. At this point, the narrator felt as if he himself was in some form of danger. Clocktown had the feeling that something was there, in place where the normal inhabitants had been. Creepy music began to continuously loop, ascending and descending in volume. The strange atmosphere brought the narrator on the verge of tears. An unseen force seemed to have been placing him in some sort of void of depression from the screen of the television. He found that he was unable to leave Clocktown no matter what he tried. Then he saw a frightening clip of Link clutching his head, the face and scream of the happy mask salesman, and eventually was being followed by the Link statue that could be summoned by using the Elegy of Emptiness. Link was constantly followed by the statue. The salesman's head continually flashes on the screen. Link appeared back at the top of the clock tower where he would towards the end of the normal gameplay of Majora's Mask. Before he could play his ocarina, Link busted into flames and died. The screen faded to black and returned to the menu screen. The file that was originally Link was now Your Turn. He selected it, but only to see a half-minute of Link dead and the Skull Kid levitating just above. Upon resetting, the menu screen not only revealed the file Your Turn, but the one below it that read Ben. That night, the narrator dreamed about the Link statue at great length. In the morning, he decided to go back to the house of the man who sold him the cartridge. No one is home. He asked a few questions to the next-door neighbor, cutting grass, and eventually asked about Ben. An incident occurred with Ben that forced his parents to move from the neighborhood 8 years ago. The narrator returned to his dorm and selected the Ben file. After a bit of hesitation, the file was a mangled mess of graphics and sound. A twisted, seemingly dead Link stood outside of the stone tower temple amidst and devilish sounds. A Link statue formed out of nowhere, and then everything faded to the dawn of a new day screen. The screen opened and now he was controlling Deku Link in Clocktown from a strange camera angle, looking from behind the clock tower door. The salesman appeared, and the screen flashed to Termina Field, switching to Link again. The strange music continued. Walking through the Termina, the salesman, Epona, Skull Kid, and the Link statue were all standing in a line near the entrance to the southern swamp. The salesman's gaze followed Link wherever he moved, and the narrator took out his ocarina and played the Song of Healing. After finishing the song, a shrill, audible sound rocked the room. The salesman's theme increased in speed, and Link again died through spontaneous combustion. That is it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the first video. I'll have more top 10, top 25, things like that. But just don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe, go green. That's the like. And